TSA still lets me through. So when I was 10, I told my mom that when I turned 18, I was gonna shave half of my head and pierce my nose. And although I never shaved my head, I did in fact pierce my nose when I was 16. Thus, I've always been a super piercing inclined person. I have 12 in total. If you guys watched my most recent vlog, you'll know that I recently got my belly pierced, which transitioned me into a phase of my life where I'm very content with the amount of piercings that I have, and I don't plan on getting any permanent tattoos anytime soon. So I decided to film this full piercing tour for you guys, which is just gonna be me going through all of my piercings in chronological order and telling you about the actual piercing and healing experiences that I've had with all of them. The first ones that I got were my first lobes, and I got those when I was 4. It was entirely my mom's decision, and obviously I don't remember much from that, but I do know that they were pierced with a gun. Do not get pierced with a gun. If you pierce your lobes with a gun, you will most likely be fine. However, if you pierce your cartilage with a gun, it can actually shatter your cartilage, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen shattered cartilage after it's healed, but it doesn't heal back into one piece. All of the chunks heal separately, and you end up with a very flexible ear or nose or whatever shattered. On September 23rd of 2019, I went to True Blue Tattoo in Queens and got my second lobes pierced. I chose this piercing salon because it was recommended by a friend, and it also had and still has really good pricing. I could be wrong, however, if I remember correctly, the pricing actually hasn't changed since I first started going there, which is pretty impressive. And it also shows that the people who own the place prioritize delivering a service over making a crazy amount of money out of it. I remember I had been begging my mom for those piercings for a while, and she finally just gave in. She has mentioned that she thought that that would satisfy my craving to get more piercings, but it didn't. They were very painless piercings and healed very quickly. I remember after 6 weeks I changed them into other earrings. On July 27th of 2020, I got both my nose and my third lobes done. A little backstory behind my nose piercing. I had been asking my mom to let me get my nose pierced for years at that point, but very seriously for a year, and she just kept saying no. And I had gone to this event that was organized by an organization that I'm still a part of, and somehow I ended up being the only girl to go from my area with a bunch of guys. Most of them were my friends, and somehow, someway, we were sitting at a table and they started quizzing me on geography. When I tell you guys that under pressure, I couldn't point where Italy was. And I also genuinely thought Wakanda was a country. It was bad. So I came home and told my mom this, and she was like, well, you need to learn your geography, because she was educated in Poland, where geography is an entire course in and of itself in your curriculum growing up. So for her, this was just like a disgrace, and I was like, if I learn the entire world map, can I get my nose pierced? And to this day, I don't know if she agreed to that deal just because she thought I wouldn't do it, or if that was actually a fair deal to her, but she said yes. It took me around 3 months. I almost quit at one point, but then I was like, I'm only 16. If I don't get it now, I'm gonna have to wait another 2 years, and that's just ridiculous. So I used that motivation to push me through. Once I was done, I went to her and I was like, look, I finished memorizing everything. She ended up quizzing me, and while she was quizzing me I made a few mistakes, and that was because when I was learning the map on my own time, I was learning it by continents, so that way when I had to write it all out I could piece it all together like a big puzzle. But she was like, oh no, you don't have to do all that, and she just pointed to a few countries and had me name them, but because I didn't have the full picture I made a few mistakes. She really appreciated the effort though, and we drove to the piercer the same day. I think he was actually closed that day, and so we had to come back another day. I was nervous for my nose piercing just because it was the first time that I was piercing something thicker than my lobes, which are essentially dead skin. But it was actually not bad, and while I was there I also got my thirds pierced. I was thinking about it for a little while before, and then in the car I was like, I have to do it, because if I don't do it now I don't know when she's gonna sign off on one of these forms again, so let me just all in one shot. While he was marking me, she had gone to the bathroom, and I think she had thought that he was marking me for symmetry, but he was actually marking 3 separate piercings. So when we left and got into the car, she was like, why did you do that? She was like, it doesn't look good, like you should mismatch them because that's more like trendy. And I was like, I'm gonna mismatch the cartilages, but I didn't want to sit there in the car while she was already mad and be like, I'm gonna get more piercings. So I just kept my mouth shut. The nose piercing didn't hurt. It was like a split second of pain and then it was over with, but the thirds stung after I got them done. And if you guys watched the last vlog, you'll know that my best friend Aisha also got 4 lobe piercings done recently, and she said that it was pretty painful, and I genuinely believe that she was in a lot more pain than I was with my 1 belly piercing. Healing process was not bad. I know my nose got irritated a little bit, but I was very attentive to it, so I didn't ever let it get too far, and then my lobes healed just like my seconds. I did have to end up getting my nose re-pierced like this winter break, because for about a year of time I had a very thin hoop in, and my nose piercing essentially closed on that very thin hoop, which my piercer at True Blue, which is where I went for my nose and my thirds, said was comparable to 3 strands of hair put together. So when I wanted to switch it back to a stud, I couldn't get it through, and I ended up going back to True Blue, having them re-pierce my nose and leaving. I did have to pay for it again just because I felt bad being like, I did something that's my own fault and now I want you to re-pierce it for free. And then I didn't get any piercings for a while because my mom said no, until I turned 18. When I turned 18, it was like a fast track of piercings, so between November and now I've gained 4 more. On November 11th of 2021, I got my septum pierced. I remember sitting at my birthday dinner in New Paltz. My family came up to celebrate with me because I'd invited my friends up there for the weekend, and it just didn't make sense for me to come home for like a day. And I turned to my mom and I was like, this week I'm going to that piercing salon, which is High Dive, previously called Art and Soul, which is across from the restaurant that we were at, and I was like, and I'm gonna get my septum pierced. And I think she thought I was joking, because when I called her, she was not happy. I was on a pre-med track at that point, and more than anything she was just concerned that I wouldn't be able to find a job in my field, because although it's illegal to discriminate against potential employees for piercings and tattoos, it does still happen, especially in higher paying fields. So that was that. But then we came to an agreement that I would just flip it up when I was home and wear it when I was back at school. Truthfully, I haven't even been wearing it a lot the past couple months. As you can see now, it's flipped up. Yes, I'm home, but like it's been flipped up just because I haven't been feeling like it. I almost took it out at one point, but I'm really glad that I didn't, because I feel like I would have gotten it re-pierced and then they would have had to pierce through scar tissue, which wouldn't have been fun. This piercing was definitely a strange feeling. For some reason, I thought that they would be piercing that very thin skin in your nose, but it was in fact a lot more forward and like right here. Pain-wise, it was one of those piercings that made my eyes water, and it was a little bit tougher to get through just because of the thickness of the skin, but it wasn't unbearable. This was also the first time that I had betrayed my regular piercer at True Blue, and the reason that I decided to get it at school was just because I knew that I wouldn't be allowed to wear it at home, so I didn't want to get it pierced here and then have to heal it flipped up. I wanted to give it air to breathe. It was a little more expensive though, but it is what it is. And my septum is actually the only piercing that I have a video of, other than my belly piercing, of course. So I'm gonna insert that for you guys now.
Hi, Mommy, I love you. And don't hate me. Please don't worry. I'm gonna come home for Thanksgiving.
I mean, you don't actually have to show.
I know, I
Look
can
it
hide
up
it.
and
That's the beauty of this. That's why
now the video is the only.
the video's the only
Incriminating evidence.
I'm just gonna. No, I don't do anything with that. It's for your tears.
Oh, that is.
I gotta put this little ball on there.
Yeah,
Other than that, you're done.
Oh, it looks so good.
New you.
The next few piercings, I unfortunately don't have dates jotted down for when I got them, but it was sometime between December and the end of spring semester for all of them. This was the time when I started working on piercing my upper ears. So the first one that I did was my top left cartilage, and I went back to True Blue for this one. I feel like I've been saying this about a lot of my piercings, but it's just because I have really high pain tolerance. It was not bad. It's kind of, how do I explain it, what you would expect. That's how I feel about cartilage piercings. Like the other ones, like septum and like belly piercings, they're like strange because it's just such strange places on your body, but the cartilage just feels exactly how you would think that it would feel. The healing process was a little bit annoying, and this applies to the one that's right under as well. The earring that the piercer gave me has a flat back for convenience purposes in terms of functioning in your daily life, but what I don't like about them is that stuff builds between the plate in your ear, which makes it irritated more easily and makes infection more probable. So I did have a phase with both of them, honestly, where they were just bleeding and really nasty, but you guys will hear about some of my tips and tricks later for eliminating that entirely. Then I got my middle cartilage on the right pierced. This was when I decided to betray my piercer for the second time intentionally. I love True Blue Tattoo. If my piercer is watching this, or anyone that works there is watching this, I love getting piercings there and I love the piercer. However, the piercer has a very strange schedule and he only comes in for a very limited amount of hours during the week. And there was this one scenario where I called and was like, is your piercer in today? And they said yes, and I showed up there, and this was before I could drive, so I walked there and he wasn't there. And the guy at the reception desk was like, oh, I'm sorry, you're the one that called. Yeah, he's actually not in. I made a mistake telling you. At this point, this had happened numerous times where either I'd showed up and he wasn't there, or I'd showed up and the whole place was shut down entirely. So I got really frustrated and I went to Jackie in Jackson Heights, I think, in Queens. And when I pulled up, this place was the most dingy looking place. Like, no disrespect to whoever owns that place, but it just did not look very trusting. And I walk upstairs and the guy, I'm pretty sure he was Jackie. Like, I'm pretty sure he was Jackie. He didn't speak much English, which I was a little like, I'm letting you pierce a hole through my body and we can't entirely understand each other. So I told myself that if at any point I'd started to feel really uncomfortable, I would just politely excuse myself and leave. But honestly, he had one of the cleanest setups I'd ever seen. So I let him pierce me, and he pierced me with this like old school ass technique. And the only thing that I didn't like about the actual process itself, not just the environment, was that he offered to put a hoop in right after he had pierced me. And if you guys don't know, you cannot put a hoop in as your first earring because the piercing will heal in a crescent shape, and then if you want to put a stud through it, you're gonna literally have to pierce through that little bit of skin that healed over. It's not super painful, but it's definitely hard to do on your own, so you'd probably have to make an extra trip to a piercer. After that one, I did the bottom left cartilage piercing. Same as the first one. Honestly, the first one was finishing up healing while I got that second one, and it was good. So if you guys noticed, I did left, right, left, so I could basically sleep on one side at all given times. Even though I did end up rolling over onto some not entirely healed piercings, which is definitely why it also got irritated faster, like my entire left side. Ooh, and also the fact that I didn't clean it for as long as I did with my other piercings. I always clean them for like months. Like, I low-key never stop cleaning my piercings, some of them. Like, my septum, I'll still spray it through every few days, so that definitely contributed to it. And lastly, I got my belly pierced, but I made a whole other vlog about that, so I'm just gonna link that in the description and feel free to watch. I wish I could remember how much all these piercings cost for you guys, but honestly a lot of the prices have slipped my mind. True Blue is the most financially efficient if you guys ever happen to be in Queens. Like, I know my lobes were 2 for $20 and stuff like that, so yeah. Now, I'm not going to be letting you guys go yet. I wanted to give you guys some advice regarding piercings as someone who's pierced a various amount of skin types all over my body. First, my advice for picking a piercer. So, one, not only should your piercer be using sterile, one-use equipment, but you should also vibe with them as a person, because piercings can go very wrong, which is something that people don't like to talk about. You can have face paralysis from a piercing. It's rare, but possible. Like, read those waivers if you ever get the chance. And if you have someone that you vibe with, it just makes the whole process a lot more comfortable. True Blue used to have this other guy, and he was very mysterious, but I brought that up to the new guy, and I forget what he said. I can't remember if he said that that guy had left or that he had been there for a while, so he didn't know who I was talking about. It was weird. But the piercer there now, he's super cool. He's my favorite piercer by far as a piercer, but my favorite piercer as a person has definitely been the guy at Art and Soul, now High Dive. Just because he was like talking a lot more and it felt a lot more conversational, plus I'd brought my future roommate Lizzie with me and he was talking to her as well. It was cool. And then healing tips. So my favorite saline spray is actually the Sterawash. I buy it on Amazon. It's like $8. You can actually buy it in bulk, and low-key if you're going to be piercing a lot, I would just do that. I haven't and I kind of regret it. I should have just bought a box like a year ago, 2 years ago, and kept it for all of these. And my top secret trick, when your piercing is getting super irritated or infected, dab a little bit of Neosporin on it with a clean Q-tip. It will prevent the area from getting infected, and in my case it's always brought down the redness a lot. Now, this advice has not been supported by a medical professional, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but it works for me. Don't do it too often because it can have reverse effects, but... And then I get my favorite jewelry off of Etsy and Claire's. Claire's I go to for my basic piercings, and Etsy I always go to for things that are a little more unconventional, or if I just want something to be really good quality. Like I bought my nose ring off Etsy, and that's just because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to rust inside of my nose. I also just wanted to note that I will be switching out some of these piercings very soon. I'll probably mention it in upcoming vlogs. Mainly it's just these two. I want to switch them into little hoops, but I've also been considering switching these into studs, so we'll see. I had a little phase where I wore diamond studs in all three of these, and I really liked how it looked, but I don't know if I want them to look that basic, so we'll see. Time will tell. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and if you ever have any piercing related questions, please feel free to DM me. Link is always in the description, or comment. And school is coming up in a few weeks, so if you have any college related questions, also hit me up. Bye guys.